We've all been there. Someone says something. Maybe it's a jab at your outfit, a constructive criticism at work, or just a dry text. Now, think about the last time someone really got under your skin. Maybe it was a passive-aggressive comment from a coworker about how brave you are for wearing that outfit. A family member bringing up that one mistake you made 5 years ago, right as you were starting to feel good about yourself. Or maybe it was just a thumbs-up emoji in response to a long, heartfelt text you sent. In that moment, something happens physically. Your heart rate jumps. Your stomach feels like it's doing a slow-motion somersault. Your face gets hot. And then, the thoughts start. Why did they say that? Do they think I'm stupid? I should have said this back. Why am I so sensitive? This is what the internet calls emotional damage. And for most of us, it feels like an unavoidable part of life. We're often told to just let it go, or don't let it get to you, which is about as helpful as telling a person in a rainstorm to just stay dry. But here's the secret. Getting hurt by what people say isn't a personality flaw. It's actually just a lack of a specific mental skill. This is the foundation of what people call emotional intelligence. Today, I'm going to show you how to build an emotional intelligence firewall for your brain. We're going to talk about a specific part of that intelligence called emotional granularity and how you can use it to stop letting people live rent-free in your head. By the end of this video, you're going to have a literal manual for how to stay cool when everyone else is trying to turn up the heat. Now, why is this so important? Because if you don't develop your emotional intelligence, you are essentially a puppet. I know that sounds harsh, but think about it. If I can say one specific word and instantly make you angry, I own you. If a random person's comment on a photo can ruin your entire weekend, they are the ones in control of your life, not you. They have the remote control, and they're just flipping through your channels. When we lack this firewall, we live in a state of constant reaction. We're like a thermometer. A thermometer has no choice. If the room gets hot, the thermometer goes up. If the room gets cold, it goes down. It's a slave to its environment. But high emotional intelligence allows you to be a thermostat. A thermostat notices the temperature, sure, but it decides what the temperature is going to be. Without this skill, you deal with what I call the emotional hangover. You know the feeling. The actual mean comment took 3 seconds to say, but you spend 3 days thinking about it. You replay the conversation in the shower. You think of the perfect comeback 3 hours too late. You lose sleep. You're distracted at work. You're short with the people you actually love because you're still simmering over something a stranger said. This is the real damage. It's not the comment itself. It's the hours of your life you give away for free to someone who doesn't even care about you. The science behind this is pretty wild. Inside your brain, there's a tiny part that acts like an alarm system, and when someone insults you, this alarm goes off. It doesn't know the difference between a physical threat, like a car swerving into your lane, or a social threat, like being left out of a group chat. To your brain, it's all danger. When that alarm goes off in your logical brain, which is the part that handles math, planning, and common sense, literally goes offline. You're in survival mode. That's why you can't think of a good response in the moment, and why you feel so drained afterward. It's because you're reacting in about 0.1 seconds. And to stop the damage, we have to widen that gap using emotional intelligence. We have to create a space between what they say and how you feel. So, how do we build that gap? It starts with a technique called emotional granularity. This is one of the most powerful tools in the emotional intelligence toolbox. It's just a fancy way of saying you need to be really specific about what you're feeling. Most people only have 3 or 4 folders for their feelings: good, bad, mad, and stressed. If something bad happens, it just goes into the bad folder and your brain panics. But people with high emotional intelligence have dozens of folders. They don't just feel bad. They feel overlooked, or underappreciated, or socially awkward, or mildly annoyed. Here is your 3-step plan to install that firewall. Step 1. The 3-second rule. The very next time you feel that sting, that emotional damage moment, I want you to do absolutely nothing for 3 seconds. Now I know that this is the hardest part. Your brain is going to scream at you to defend yourself, to snap back, or to start spiraling. Don't. Just count. 1, 2, 3. In those 3 seconds, you are waiting for your logical brain to catch up. You're giving the alarm system a chance to see that there's no actual tiger in the room. This 3-second gap is where your freedom lives. This is the first step in exercising your emotional intelligence. It's the difference between being a puppet and being a person. Step 2. The precision label. Once you've breathed through those 3 seconds, I want you to name the emotion. But you aren't allowed to use the words bad or upset. You have to get surgical. This is where emotional granularity kicks in. Ask yourself, what is this exactly? Are you embarrassed because they called you out in front of people? Are you disappointed because you expected more from them? Are you frustrated because they aren't listening? The moment you put a specific name on a feeling, something incredible happens in your brain. You've moved the data from the panic center to the thinking center. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. The monster usually turns out to be a shadow. When you say, I am feeling a 4 out of 10 level of irritation because my boss used a condescending tone, you've turned a giant, scary cloud of emotional damage into a small, manageable piece of data. This is emotional intelligence in action. You're now an observer of your feelings, not a victim of them. Step 3. The source filter. Now that you're thinking clearly, you need to run a source filter. Ask yourself, is this person a credible source for my self-worth? Think of it like this. If a toddler told you that your hair looked like a bird's nest, you wouldn't be offended. You'd laugh. Why? Because a toddler isn't a credible source for fashion advice. So, when a random person online or a toxic acquaintance or a frenemy says something to hurt you, why are you treating them like a credible source? If you wouldn't go to them for advice, why are you going to them for your self-esteem? Now, when you use the source filter, you start to realize that most emotional damage is just someone else's projected baggage. This is the social awareness part of emotional intelligence. If someone is mean to you for no reason, that tells you everything about their mental state and absolutely nothing about yours. You don't have to accept the gift of their negativity. You can just leave it on the doorstep. Look, I'm not saying you'll never feel hurt again. We're human. We're wired to care about what others think. But the goal isn't to become a robot. The goal is to stop the spiral. Developing emotional intelligence isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about understanding them so well that they can't be used against you. Remember, you can't control what people say and do. The world is full of people who are stressed, tired, and looking for a target. However, you can control how much of your life you give to them. When you build that gap and start naming your feelings with precision, you become unshakable. You realize that emotional damage isn't something someone does to you. It's something that happens when you don't have your emotional intelligence firewall turned on. So, your homework for today is simple. The next time you feel that heat rise in your chest, stop. Breathe for 3 seconds. Name the exact, specific emotion you're feeling, and then ask yourself if that person even deserves the power to make you feel any types of negative feelings. Stay unshakable and keep on living your life. I'll see you in the next video.